Hello, 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 everybody. This is Michelle Hayward. I'm here with Jessica Walker. We're talking about Our Bodies Belong to Us, restoring Black autonomy and joy as we discuss Black Maternal Health Week. If you are not familiar with it, don't worry about it. We're going to share some information, or rather, Jessica is. For those of you that are joining for the first time, we connect Black scientists, engineers, and technology professionals to management roles. And when it comes to the women we serve, we don't just look at it as serving their careers, but really serving them as an entire person. And so we're talking about maternal health, we'll talk about mental health, physical well-being, financial well-being as well. So this time of year, we generally talk about maternal health. So, Jessica, it is great to have you back again. Can you tell everybody who's listening a bit about you?
Yes, my name is Jessica. I go by Just Speaks Digital. I work in both the digital realm as well as maternal mental health. I got into this work from my own lived experience with postpartum depression and anxiety. So, as I started to learn a lot about depression, stigma around postpartum depression, stigma around anxiety, and also learning a bit about our heritage and things to that effect and things that contribute to a lot of our stressors and things that happen to come out as depression or anxiety, I started to advocate for moms. And as I got into advocacy, I learned so much and I was able to speak with so many amazing individuals. So, as a mom of six, yes, there are six and no twins. I get called a lot to speak around maternal mental health and advocacy and just motherhood in general. That is me in a nutshell.
So, I'm one of five. So, so in that five, what I will say is that um, we it was twins in there. So I'll just say that. I will say that much. There are twins in the five that I'm from. And so I really want to thank you for sharing, coming on and sharing part of your story. And like you said, postpartum is definitely real. And my mother's talked about it briefly, about her experience before I was born with postpartum. We've seen very publicly with Britney Spears many years ago her public her public actions while she was in postpartum, when and how she eventually got some positive feedback about it. Women that were saying, hey, that looks like some symptoms of postpartum, but we don't often see that when it comes to Black women and other women of color when they're exhibiting postpartum. So I want to talk more about what is Black Maternal Health Week, how did it get started, and really talk about then this year some data around it, and then while we're talking about it in the aspect of joy, and I think and autonomy. So if you want to just tell us a bit about the history and how that all got started.
Yeah, so Black Mamas Matters Alliance founded the Black Maternal Health Week. It's a week of awareness, of activism, and community building aimed at amplifying the voices of Black mamas and centering the values and traditions of reproductive and birth justice movements. So, Black Mamas are BMHW, which is held annually. It's an annual conference that is hosted and founded by Black Mamas Matters Alliance as well. In April. So during that National Minority Month, they all come together and it's a week dedicated to educating and advocating for Black mamas. So it makes so much sense that we are doing this stream, especially on LinkedIn, where conversations like this don't usually happen on, I feel like this platform, right? As a digital strategist, I feel like on this platform, there's a lot of talk about professionalism and things. And I think the conversation around mental health has even become a thing recently, especially after the pandemic. However, postpartum doesn't get talked about a lot. So I love the fact that Michelle, you kind of had me on, and I'm sure you'll speak with other individuals as well in the future around this whole theme of what happens when you become a mother. when you are, a woman and all those things, and then you transition over into, now I have this human being I have to take care of, and how that interferes with work and things to that effect. So I'm so happy that Black Mothers Matters Alliance was able to put together this Black Maternal Health Week, because it gives us the opportunity to then use these platforms to talk a little bit more about what that means once women become moms.
I'm a sidetrack for a minute. I know we had a plan. Well, that plan is going to get a little bit rerouted because we do diversity recruitment at Positive Hire. And one of the things that comes in with the job description are benefits. And oftentimes, the person I'm speaking with at an organization is like, oh, we have great benefits. And I'll say, according to whom? And they're like, what do you mean? And I'll say, what percentage of your employees say that your benefits are great? I say, for instance, I'm in rural South Carolina. If you give me Uber credits, it does not help me most of the time, because I can guarantee you there is no Uber coming to pick me up ever, because it's not financially a good idea for them to service the area I'm in. The population density isn't there. The other part of that I had to explain is your healthcare benefits may fit the majority of your people. It is the marginalized people, the outliers in your data set that you need to be looking at and really saying, is it women or is it certain people of color? Because healthcare, we know in a lot of lower income, even mid to lower income areas, do not have the same access to healthcare, right? And so that employee who got sick may have to take a full, or even their child or a family member that gets sick, they have to take a full day off of work. And what we often say, when a white person gets the cold, a black person gets the flu. And what this really means is, on the social economic lens, we won't go to the doctor until we have to, because of the financial detriment that it causes us for good benefits. And so I bring this up because it's really important to have these discussions on a platform like LinkedIn, because your benefits usually are not equitable. They're not beneficial, especially to marginalized people, and we don't have those conversations. And how do you go about and looking at, and you can do a survey within your organization, but you really need to understand what benefits your employees are using, why aren't they using certain benefits, and who are using which benefits and when. Like, I only see our older people of color utilize it, but they're hospitalized. So you have some policy changes and benefit changes you probably need to look at, but it's so expensive. Having that person out for a day as opposed to a month, how much does that really cost your organization? Right? That's not, if you have to financially, but what does it do to your people overall when you look at how they look at how you're providing benefits that are not beneficial to your employees. So I just want to take that because it irks a nerve with me. So let's go into a bit about the actual data, because I'm a data nerd, but some of the information and the data that we've seen over the last, I don't know, probably 20 years, but more recently, what have they seen, especially during COVID and the pandemic, as it relates to maternal health? Go
Black Mamas Matters Alliance actually put together a whole social media toolkit. So you can actually go to their website and download a whole social media toolkit. I will pull out one piece of this toolkit where they show that recent data shows that maternal deaths have actually increased by COVID-19 infections amongst growing cases of clear neglect in care in hospital systems immediately after labor and delivery. So Black Mamas Alliance, let's see, highlighted and center culturally congruent practices with a focus on Black midwifery care and full spectrum Black-led doula care. So when we think about the impact that COVID-19 had on our mothers, right? The moms that were giving birth inside of these places where most oftentimes they would give birth and no one could come with them inside of the room. They weren't allowing doulas. They were usually only allowing one person, usually a significant other or partner. And if you didn't have a significant other or partner, at some capacity, they weren't even allowing their parents or grandparents, which is really crucial in to our culture, right? Where we have aunties and possibly even uncles who may have been the step-in parent, right? The parent that was there that was the step in for the actual parent that we're closer to. Where those things weren't um, they weren't able to actually have those folks in those rooms with them during that time. So a lot of the data that is shown within the Black Mamas Matters Alliance data book there, you can actually go to the link. I believe Michelle may go ahead and post it here as well, but you can go to their website and it shows a ton of data there, as well as some talking points and things that you may want to take a look at.
Thank you so much for that. A toolkit, I think, is definitely beneficial. I haven't been through it yet, so I'm really excited about it. I also added to the screen, it's in the comments, depending on whether or not you are listening to this in audio only. So go check out the show notes if you are for that link. But what I think is really important that I won't say the healthcare community doesn't know. I think they don't really care because it's not the majority of them,
Yeah.
is in how we are community oriented. And it is very, very important for us to have the family there. They are going to stick with it. Oh, well, it was for COVID. Great. Now we have not only the mother who just delivered, but also a family member who can watch out for the two of them while you're already short staffed, you're inundated with COVID patients. And the families understood the risk, but they also understood the risk of not being there with their daughter, sister, spouse, significant other, and having them alone. And I culturally, it hasn't been addressed. I think more has come out as we've seen more nurses quit, more medical professionals quit, and I think some of them that are quitting understand the cultural differences that happen as well. So, and we can go back to Serena Williams saying she knew something was wrong, and the hospital still ignoring her until I can't remember, it was hours, and then having other young women die, wives die, and them saying hours after hours after hours, my wife needs attention, them ignoring, and a young man is now a widower with two young children because the hospital did not take action and he sued them. And this is all pre-COVID. So imagine now how exacerbated this has been, like you said, during COVID.
Yeah,
Um,
one thing I want to touch on, Michelle, before we move forward is within our work, with my work with Be Mom Aware, as an organization, we speak to a lot of doulas. We actually had a listening session where we spoke to a lot of moms after the C word happened. I hate to even say after the C word happened. And a lot of them just talked about not only the experience inside of the hospital, but then after, right? The mental toll that took place after that, and they felt like they had no one to talk to. They had no place to go, and they weren't sure what they should do next, right? They weren't able to talk to their friends. They weren't able to actually even be in community with their friends. They weren't aware of the next steps to even get the help that they needed. Like, where do I even go? And how frustrating that could be, right? So during those listening sessions, we heard a lot of that. During our listening sessions with Black Women Birthing Justice, an organization that I work along with and I collaborate with as well and do a lot of their socials and things to that effect. With women, with Black Women Birthing Justice, we heard during their listening sessions, because then we spoke with doulas. There was one actual incident where a doula was on the phone with a mom, and the mom was giving birth in the parking lot. That should never happen, ever, right? So we have these, there's so many different stories. I'm going through my mind right now, and that's why I keep like saying, because I have like 5 million different stories that are similar to that, where these experiences are happening to Black women and they're not sure either where to go, what to do. And we have doula stepping in going, okay, like take this step, do this, do that. Now, right now, we're seeing a shift happen. We're seeing where more folks are aware of what a doula is. More folks are aware of their advocacy rights, and that's kind of what we advocate for with Be Mom Aware. It's to speak up. And to your point, How do you speak up though when no one's listening?
Yep.
So deeper conversation probably for another time, but I definitely wanted to highlight that those are some of the stories that we're hearing from moms as well as doulas that, they're just going through it. And what do we do? And what are the next steps? How do we solve these problems? Right? What are the solutions? Instead of always talking about it, we need to look at some different solutions that we can now put into play.
So let's talk. You brought up three different types of people in the process that aren't necessarily considered li medical professionals. I'll put it to you that way.
Yeah.
I want to start with the midwives because historically for the Black community, midwives have played a huge point until one point in history, American history specifically,
Yeah.
they were told it was not legitimate. They would go to jail. Maybe I'm exaggerating. That's what I understand.
Oh
Can
yeah.
we talk about midwives for a minute? Because everybody knows doulas, but I don't think they really understand historically the significance of midwives.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So I wrote a book, and during my research with this book, I just dove headfirst into the world of this midwifery, doulas. Like, how did we even get to this place of where we have babies in the hospital when that wasn't the norm for us before? Before we would have babies at home. So I researched this whole thing, and I came across this documentary called All My Babies on YouTube. So All My Babies is a really, to be honest with you, I believe they started it to document, let me say her name correctly, Mary Frances Heal, um, and she was a midwife during that time, and they documented her birthing practices, like, how she cleaned the baby, what she did, all these things, right? And they took that and then they trained other people with it, right? They trained folks with it and then told them basically, you're not safe having your baby at home. You need to go to a hospital. Like, it was a whole entire thing, right? So as I started to learn about All My Babies, I did a presentation at a conference, and I talked a little bit about All My Babies. I was talking about at that time, and this was like, I think about 5 years now, or maybe four. Where I talked about social media and the importance of social media and why we need to share our voices. And it was amazing how many folks in that room had never heard of Mary Frances Hill Connolly and never heard of her, right? Um, so when we talk about midwifery, when we talk about these things, it's really about the practices that we had basically been doing because we knew that those things worked, and how that was taken and used in a different context and then trained folks on it, and none of the credit was ever given to the proper folks. So I can go down a whole rabbit hole of that, but I'll end here and let you ask the next question.
Well, I think the other thing is to also we'll probably come back, or if you can come back afterwards and just share the link to your book,
Yeah.
so people be able to grab that as well. What what interests what generally happens is, and we've seen this time and time again, and I just came back from Colombia, the country, and the necessity for innovation, right? And what happens is, as enslaved people, we could not get credit for the things we invented. And so it's always these things about, oh, well, what would the world be like, especially during Black History Month, if Black people had never existed? And then people are like, well, that can't be right. Oh, it is. No AC for you. And right. And so I think the same thing happens even in the medical field, how a Black woman is really her body being studied for science. And nobody in her family, not even her, being credited for what advances, I'm putting air quotes, have been made from her body, because it may not have necessarily benefited Black people. And so I'm not surprised at all. But also, I think within there, when we look at midwives and the ability to birth Black children safely and to keep the mothers alive, really is about growing the Black population. And if you aren't for that, and you can remove some of those safeguards and those best practices for us because they're for us. Like, well, it's only 23%. So if we just remove it from 23% of Americans, well, and I'm going back years ago, so not necessarily the percentage of Black people are in America right now, well, then it still benefits the majority of people. And that's why I always go into employers like your benefits don't necessarily address the people, everyone. It really needs to look at how does it negatively impact marginalized people. And so that's often what we see. Best practices are developed, but what is it really the impact when you decide it doesn't impact a lot of people over here if we remove it, but removing it impacted a certain demographic of people. Um, so we have midwives, we have doulas. I want to get into some solutions, and I know there's discussions about healthcare advocates and what role do they play in the healthcare system, the modern day U.S. healthcare system specifically, and what do people and some other solutions that you may have when it comes to maternal health.
So for me, especially as we kind of embark on this journey of our project with Be Mom Aware. You can go to BeMomAware.com just to kind of see the site and take a look at it. But it's specifically for women, Black and Latino women here in the Sacramento, California area. But when we thought of this idea, and it's put together by two moms who have lived experience, myself and also Brenna Resin, when we sat down to put together this project, we had to think about what did we need when we were going through it? What did we experience and how could we build a site and a resource that folks could go to and get the necessary information that they need to advocate for themselves? For a majority, as I said during that listening session that we held, a majority of the women there were just like, I just didn't know where to go. And the women that actually came to this listening session, we had both we have four in all different listening sessions, or it may have been more. To be honest with you, it's been a minute. And all the tools and things in my brain. But anywho, we had several of them. I'll say that, and we had several that were for African American women, and then we had several that were for Latino women. And we spoke with them and asked them about our campaign and different things they wanted to see. And as we started to talk to them, literally just having a place and a space where they could just vent or just kind of talk about some of the things that they were experiencing with others, they were like, we just need more of this, right? So as we started to build the website, we were like, okay, what can we put in here that we can create that, simulate kind of that same experience, but online? So as we put together all of these different resources and different triggers and things you should look for, stress is a number one thing. So if I could give you any insight or tips about any of that, as far as providing solutions, our website, obviously, we put that together to be one part of the solution. We also put together a care connector. Within that care connector, and speaking to what you were talking about, Michelle, for a lot of folks that have insurance, they don't know that it's actually required within their insurance companies for them to provide them with a way to access mental health services. Right. So, depending on what type of insurance you have, you can actually go to our website, type in that insurance name, and it'll actually populate. Okay, these are the steps in order for you to access the insurance and access the, whether it's a therapist, a psychologist, or just wanting to find support groups, things to that effect, that your insurance will cover based upon the type of insurance that you have. Right. I actually put together that tool. Took me hours, but I did because I'm not a coder by trade. You know, that's not a typical job that I do, but if you give me some tools, I can figure it out. So I put together this tool that we could use to then go in, folks can put in their insurance and get to the proper resources and things that they needed. Once again, we kept hearing over and over again, I'm experiencing this, I'm going through this, but I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do next. I don't know who to contact, all of those different things. So as we talk about solutions, I put together a crossword puzzle. It's a, it's not a crossword, it's a word search, excuse me. I put together a word search. The reason why I put together this word search is that I found out that when I was going through the challenges that I experienced, I sat down and I started to do word search puzzles because I was starting to forget a lot of memories. I was starting to forget birthdays, just typical things. I was starting to lose a lot of that because of my level of stress. At the time, I was a mama of, I think I only had 4 at that point. Or wait, yeah, I had 4. I had to do my math. I had 4 of them. And I was just so overwhelmed that I would go to, word searches, and I would go to, just fun things. Things that'll help me take my mind off of it. So I put together this word search because I wanted to provide solutions. I've spoken about maternal mental health, postpartum depression, and anxiety for the past, I think it's been about 7, or yeah, it's been about 7 years now. And as we start, I seem to have the same conversation over and over and over again. And yet I'm not seeing a change. Now we've had a bit of a shift now. We can actually say I'm going to a therapist on social media. So there's that. But the shift I wanted to see, right? So I decided to put together that word search puzzle, and also inside of that word search puzzle, put together words and things that would not only hit the conscious mind, but the subconscious mind. Because what we talk about is we talk about the layers, right? Or we talk about the thing that we see all the time, which is depression, anxiety, sadness, maybe even anger for Black women. But we don't talk about how to level that down and what may be happening in the unconscious, what may be happening underneath that. Bills, stress, or bills, killings, seeing our folks being handled in different ways on social media, seeing the actual murder of folks on social media, all of those things, right? And not to mention our own family members and things that may happen in our own family lives, right? All of those things that are happening, how can we then have a moment to just decompress? Because sometimes it's just that piece. We just need to decompress. Like we just need a minute. And so that's why I put together that solution of a word search, because that was something that helped me during that my times of when I just needed a minute. So I hope that helps.
And we do have a question. Do you have a particular place to get the word search?
Oh, Amazon, where we shop. Right? Amazon. So if you just go to Amazon and type in maternal health word search, you should see it pop up there. And yeah, it's listed with a lot of ways for and tips on how to keep yourself well, things that I used, and just words of affirmation, words of encouragement. And I felt like I said, I felt like I needed to create solutions instead of always talking about my experience, which I'm sure is helpful. Yes, the story is helpful, absolutely. But at a certain point, what is the solution? How do I provide solutions to organizations as well as people that need that extra piece of it? And I can't be everywhere at all times. So,
Thank you for that. I'll drop the link to your question in the chat, so you'll have that. I know we're close to time, but I still got so much more. So I'm gonna just
we can rapid fire if you want to rapid fire.
yeah, I don't know what that is. So you were talking about employee benefits. And what I really love about the younger millennials and Gen Z is their openness to talk about therapy and going to therapy. And now how we're saying in videos and things like, hey,
Oh, yeah,
trigger,
that's so new. That's
yeah,
so new.
yeah, and trigger warning and things like that. And I think that is greatly needed and appreciated. What had often been said, again, the stories people want to tell and the lack of accountability people want to have, is that high blood pressure was tied to the way Black people eat, when in actuality it's tied to racism and how we're treated in the United States of America and globally. And so when you really think about the impacts of racism on every day from where we live, the safety, because you can think you're in the safest neighborhood, but once your neighbors know you Black, that could be a whole other traumatic issue. And so, and healthcare, you think you have to help um, access to the best healthcare, but who is the best healthcare for? And so we really have to think in different layers and lenses, because our ability to survive and thrive really, really is important. Okay,
Girl.
now I want to talk. Um, I
Let
mean,
me just say this real quick. Everyday perceived racism. Just Google that and look it up. Everyday perceived racism. It is the it is the going to the store. I'll give you guys a couple examples. It's the going to the store and having a person in front of you that the cashier is like, "Oh, it's Taco Tuesday. Oh wow, yeah, you're making it." And then as soon as you walk up, it's like your total is $3. That difference, right? It's that difference of having someone check your $5 bill versus the person in front of you, they didn't check it at all. Well, we may not have that anymore because everything's going digital, right? Everybody's paying by their phone now. But anyway, right? It's those things, right, that dive into the stress that you were talking about. So I just wanted to make sure I hit on that, right? Because some folks, they may hear that and go, "Oh, there's no, it's every single freaking day there's something." And just imagine that every day there's something. It's too much.
it is. It is. Um, so when we look at Black maternal health, and your community also serves Latino mothers, what can they expect? I know you said groups for support groups and resources, but let's dive in deeper. Like I'm expecting my second child. My first experience in a hospital was very, very traumatic. I didn't. I really struggled with wanting to get pregnant a second time. What are some things I can go into your organization, Be Mom Aware, and expect to find that may be able to support me or somebody else, whether they're a first time mother or they're expecting their next child?
Well, let me say this. Let me take that and push it on its head a little bit. Oh no, I'm pregnant again, second child. I'm overwhelmed already. you know, maybe baby daddy's not doing what he's supposed to do or whatever. There's just a lot going on. And I am at my wits' end. I am about to scream. You can go to this website and you can find, first of all, we're working on getting a health navigator. So as we get those things into place, at later times, you can actually go to a chat and go, "Hey, this is what's happening. I need help." And then it'll direct you to where you need to go based upon whatever you're going through and you're experiencing. I'm currently building that out now, so please allow me a couple more weeks. So as I build that chatbot, right? So we're looking at things at as I'm going to get a little bit into my digital brain. I apologize. Chat GPT, things to that effect that can actually help. Back to our part of solutions, right? I'm all about solutions. I'm a strategist. That's what I do. I'm looking at solutions. Like there's a problem. How do we get the solution? What do we need to do? Right. So as the mom that's coming, that's, oh my gosh, it's the second baby. This is going on. This is going on. Maybe I don't have food. I don't have money for X, Y, and Z, right? I need access to a therapist and I need access now, not in 3 or 4 weeks whenever I get the referral to the X to the X to the Z. I need somebody now. That's what you would come to Be Mom Aware for if you live in the Sacramento area, because we are only servicing Sacramento at this point. But we hope to build this thing out to where we can train other counties on how they can build their own Be Mom Aware sites in their own respective counties, right? So that is something that we hope to do in the future.
Thank you for that. And we have a really good, because I'm the auntie, I'm hashtag team no kids. But is this still valuable word search for non mothers?
That is a great question. I think it can be. You know why? Because as a woman, I just think we're very nurturing. And I'll speak for Black women as well. We take care of everyone else before ourselves.
Yep.
Everyone else. So you may not be a mother who has given birth, but you definitely are nurturing to, your nieces, your nephews, whomever, right? That they may lean and come to you probably more than they come to their parents. Right. So just that mental capacity of if you're always pouring out, you're always pouring out, constantly pouring out, that word search is for you.
I love it. I love it. Okay. I'm gonna stop here because I could obviously stay on here much longer and have way more.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, you know this would be a full on.
but I love what you're building with Be Mom Aware. I still think while the resources may be more Sacramento focused, there are probably some things on there if you're not from the SAC. That's what y'all say, right? Um, that would be beneficial to you, or at least go ask the chatbot, like, hey, I'm in South Carolina on a dirt road. Do you got a number I can call somewhere? And so I think it may be some other resources to people that can be gathered on a nationwide basis that
Well, if to your point, right, if it's we're not gonna turn you away or say, "Oh, sorry, can't help you." We will go and try to find that information for you, right? Especially as we get more funding, hint, hint. Once we get more funding in, then I think we can make this a more robust thing where it's like, if you ask it, "Hey, I'm in this place, can I, what do I do or who do I reach out to?" We can answer those questions, or maybe even partnering with counties. If you are in a county and you'd like to build out something like this, please reach out to me. I'm more than happy to have that conversation of how do you build this? How do we get the chat bot, the things so that you don't have to necessarily have another human employee do it, but you can still get the information and the resources to the person immediately, right? In that time sensitive manner. So maybe that's conversations that we need to have that I'll need to have more moving forward as we get more requests. But please reach out to us via email. We are more than happy to go, okay, let's do a search together, or have our health navigator go and do a search for you and give you the information that you need. So although we do only provide basic information to Sacramento residents right now, and our website is dedicated to Sacramento residents in some capacity, there's absolutely certainly blog posts, as well as I think we have a list of, I don't think I know because I built it out. We have a list of different triggers,
yeah.
reasons why you may be feeling the way you feel. Those are worldwide. They aren't just Sacramento County specific. So please check out the website and let us know. Give us your feedback on the website as well, of anything you would love to see as well.
Jessica, thank you so much for joining me today. Where can people connect with you on social? Because she does social so well.
Thank you. So LinkedIn, I am here on LinkedIn, Jessica A. Walker, Jaws Speaks Digital. If you just type in Jaws or Jaws Speaks Digital, I'll usually pop up in some capacity or way. You can also connect with me on Instagram at Maternal Health Speaker on Instagram. I'm also at Jaws Speaks Digital on Instagram, and TikTok. TikTok is a huge thing for me right now. So Maternal Health Speaker on Instagram, or Jaws Speaks Digital on Instagram if you want more of the digital stuff. Thank you so much, Michelle, for having me on.
You're very welcome, everybody. This is why I want Jessica on. She don't talk about it. She's lived it. She's committed to serving you and your community, and she's fighting for all of us. So everybody have a great week, and we will talk to you next time.